You know, when I took this apart a few days ago, I had a sneaking suspicion, for whatever reason, that it wasn't really going to go well, and something was going to go wrong. I was right. So, if you watched my last video, which not many people have so far, you'll know that I was going to take the carb off of this, take it apart, clean it, and put it back together, see if I can find anything that was abnormally, whatever, jumped out at me as bad. Well, I did that, and, nothing was abnormal about it. It was, it looked pretty good. I got rid of my charcoal canister, I rerouted that hose, that smog hose from the tank there, put a cap in it, just like I said I was going to. That part went okay. But taking the carburetor off, well, I made a bit of an oopsie here. See, I've got it back together. Not only was it fine on the inside, I didn't really have to clean it, so I'm a little concerned about what else would have been causing my issue. But when I was taking it off, I foolishly used a punch that was too big for the hole for the accelerator pump arm, and I snapped off the ear. See, here's my air horn. See that? Right there? Yeah, I did that. I don't know what happened to my punch that I had for these. I had a punch that was the perfect size for that hole, for that little pin that sticks in that hole. But the punch that I was using evidently was too big. So instead of putting pressure on the pin, it was putting pressure on this here tab, and it snapped it off. It's sitting right there now. I tried JB welding it, and that did not do anything. So then I went and ordered a new air horn, 14 bucks, new old stock off eBay, and I was pretty happy with that. It's coming tomorrow. But then I read on a forum somewhere that carburetors, especially old ones like this, will warp to themselves. Like the three parts will warp with all the heat cycles they go through. And if you replace just one piece, the new piece isn't going to be warped, so you're probably going to have fuel and or vacuum leaks. So I went ahead and grabbed my old air horn here and looked at it and measured it with a straight edge, and it is extremely warped. Not only can you see it with a straight edge, but if you look at it with your eyeballs, I don't know if it shows up on camera, but see right in the middle there where the air bleeds are is low, and on the end of the right side and left side it's higher. That is extremely warped. It's just as bad looking at it this way. Look at the tab on the left-hand side there is up more than the rest of it. That's warped. If you flip it around here and look at it this way, I have all the accessories on it now, so you can't quite see it, but the rear here of it, the right side there, is higher than the middle center part, and this here left side is also lower. It's like a wave. It's terribly warped. It's horrendous. And the float body is the exact same way. So I cannot replace this air horn. See, look at how bad that is. You see where my thumb is? And then look where my palm of my hand is? And then look in between them. It's horrible. So it's very warped, and there's not really anything you can do about that. So we have to use this air horn, and I have not been able to drive this car for several days now, and I'm not very happy about that because the car I've been driving doesn't have working heat, and it's still pretty cold here. So I was getting ready to throw in the towel and say I quit, throw my hands up in the air, and buy a new carburetor. And then I found on quadrajetpower.com a replacement part that replaces that ear on this here thing. Instead of that, they call it a arm pivot boss is the official name for that part that broke off. But I just call it the ear that holds the pivot, the accelerator pump arm, or the accelerator pump pivot. But that ear is super common to break off, apparently. It's super thin on these older quadrajets. The newer ones will have they're fatter, so it doesn't break off near as easy. But the old ones like this are much thinner, so they break off fairly easily. And the fix is a jig, I guess, that it's a tiniest little peg that's like kind of fluted, I guess you could call it. So it fits in that hole, and you put Loctite on that and stick it in the hole, and then it's like essentially just a bolt with a washer on it, a glorified bolt with a washer on it that costs $8. But then you put the pump arm on your part there, and then you put Loctite on the splines for the little piece, and pound it into the hole that exists there already, and that just kind of takes the place. It holds the arm in place, and it just kind of takes the place of the that boss that snapped off. So I ordered that. That's not going to be here until mid next week at the soonest, and late next week at the latest. So I'm still going to be driving this car or I'm still not going to be driving this car for the rest of this week and next week probably. So really not happy about that, but that seems to be what always happens whenever I do anything with any of my cars. Something that should only take an hour, 2 hours tops, ends up taking like 3 weeks. So I gotta say, I'm not really surprised, but I'm pretty goddamn disappointed. So there's that. In other news, I also found out that this here carburetor is not just a regular quadrajet, unfortunately. It's called something called an APT quadrajet, which is adjustable part throttle. And all that means is that there is a secondary, it's not an accelerator pump, but it's a secondary fuel flow that allows for partial fuel to flow into the carb at a constant rate while you're operating at anything but curb idle or full throttle. That's why it's called part throttle. And it's adjustable. This here screw right here, if you have like a tire valve stem core removal tool, it fits right onto that. And you can adjust that, and it adjusts your fuel trims, I guess, for your adjustable part throttle. And this carb came off of a late 70s Oldsmobile 350 Rocket. This engine that's in this is a 307. That is a 0.7 liter difference, which is quite a bit. So this is going to be tuned to be richer than the 307, as this carburetor never came on a 307. The 307 wasn't put in cars until this carb was not put in cars. Imagine that. So the issue I was having with dieseling when I turn it off in park or neutral, and the issue I was having with hard starts after it's only been off for maybe an hour, is most likely because it's just pouring way too much fuel in there at all times because of that adjustable part throttle. So that adds a third thing now I need to adjust when I get this all back together. Instead of just mixture screws and idle speed and choke, now we have to deal with adjustable part throttle, which I have no idea how to do. So if anyone knows anything about those, let me know in the comments, because I'm at a loss there. But yeah, I was hoping that it was a regular quadrajet, but it's not. It's this weird APT deal, and they're quite different than the regular ones. I do have a regular one down here, but there's no air horn for it. It's just the throttle body and the valve body. But this here one is a regular quadrajet. As you can see, there's no APT in here. It's just a regular one, but I don't have the air horn for this. Otherwise, I just use this one. And these were, the APT started being done in 1975, I guess, and then was updated in 1977, this is a 78. The original ones didn't have the APT right behind the power piston. It had it next to it. So it had the power piston in addition to the APT. And I guess this one, it's all one unit. So it's a little bit better or more reliable, I guess people say. But personally, I'd rather have a carb that doesn't have an extra adjustment for no reason, because I'm pretty sure the APT isn't really helping this car much. So I thought about getting a carb from the early 70s to late 60s, quadrajet from those ranges. But then people are saying that the ones that are that old, the early quadrajets, aren't very reliable. So I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably end up just fixing that air horn, like I said, putting it back together, throwing it on the car, seeing if it runs. And if it doesn't run, I had a buddy of mine, a carb expert, I mind you. tell me that it's quite possible that it's so warped that it's just fucked and you need a new carburetor anyway. So that very well may be the case, but it's not gonna, can't hurt but trying it. So gonna throw it all back together when I get my parts, and we'll see what happens. The last thing I got for you in this little update deal is this. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of some of this shit so I don't knock a bunch of stuff over here. This is a PCV deal. It's like dried out now, so you can't see it. But this was disgusting when I pulled it out. It was full of oil. It was dripping oil onto the ground from this hose. They say that if it's rattle, they're good, but they also say that when they're bad, they leak oil through and cause idling concerns, which is what I'm dealing with. So I got a new one of these. Technically, I got one from the junkyard, but it was free, so can't deny me that. It rattles, so it's good, and that's sitting in there right now. But that's from a newer car. It's from a Chevy truck from the late 90s, so it doesn't have this right angle thing in it for the hose, so I'm gonna have to get a new hose, but that's okay. I don't want the oil filled one anyway. So there's that. PCV might be bad. I thought about maybe putting a draft tube on it instead, but it might be a little bit too much work. I'm gonna try replacing the PCV first before I have to go and fabricate some stuff up. Lastly, I'll just show you here on this other air horn that I've stripped now for parts, what the modern accelerator pump boss, I guess, looks like. See right here, it's a lot fatter. Instead of just ending where my thumb is, it goes this extra little bit here, and that's in part for the throttle position sensor that would go right here, but it's also to make them stronger so you don't end up snapping that off near as easy. They've also made it so the pin that holds these in is quite a bit larger than the tiny little one that comes on the older ones. So the new ones are slightly better, but I digress. Anyway, that's what I got going on. It's going to be a long road. Hopefully when I get it all back together and it's all said and done, it will actually work the way it's supposed to. But if it doesn't, you'll see a video about it. Anyway, see you next time.